All right, for our EZ Body candy here, our EZ Body Albie fly, we're going to be starting out. We got some of the new size 1 Mustad curved streamers. These are their updated version of the big game hook, and this is the C70 SAP instead of the C70 SD, which are the old big game hooks. Now we have some saltwaterflies.com adhesive eyes here, some size 3 or 3/16 of an inch. We have some bucktail here. I have some white bucktail, brand new, and then I have a older pink bucktail here. Pink and white's one of my favorite colors for Albie, so I'm always going to be partial to it. Next we have some polar flash. I thought we'd mix it up and use something different instead of the regular crystal flash and flashaboo all the time. It's just a nice alternative to regular flashes that we use a lot here on the channel. We have our Danville monofilament thread, fine, in our bobbin. Classic for our Albie flies. We have some solar res here, medium and thin. You can use flex resin. Some Zap-A-Gap super glue for our eyes. The star of the show today, some EZ Body. There are some alternatives to this. You should be able to go to a craft store and find something like this, but the quality of EZ Body for fly tying is going to be hard to match. With cheaper materials, you'll find a lot of times once you start cutting it, it starts falling apart and unweaving itself. So EZ Body really is the best option for something like this, but you can easily go to a craft store. It just depends on the quality of the tubing you can find. Okay, let's start tying this EZ Body candy. We're going to go ahead and just put some monofilament thread on the hook here. We don't even need to go that far back. Go ahead and take some bucktail. We have our white bucktail here. We'll just take a pinch of white bucktail. Now we're going with a size 1 here. Not the largest EZ Body, so we don't want to add too much material. We're going to keep it pretty sparse. We'll go ahead. I'm going to leave a gap behind the hook eye. So we could tie our EZ Body in and not have too much of a hard time. So we'll go ahead and take our polar flash here. And take that polar flash, fold that in half, and just tie this on there, right on top. And have that sticking just out behind the bucktail. So now I'll take some of this pink bucktail. I'm just going to cut some off here. Make sure I get this tapered, get all the smaller hairs out of there. Doesn't make too much of a difference here because we're using EZ Body, but... So now we can go ahead and tie our pink in here. Get our pink bucktail on there like so, and just wrap that down. And now we can kind of gauge and see how long do we want this. Now you can go behind the bend of the hook. I'm going to go right up about to it. So essentially right about there. Now we can go ahead and again give a little test line up here. I don't want it to go too far back, so I'm actually just going to trim a little bit of this off. So now what we can do is go ahead and put a whip finish on here because we're going to put our EZ Body over. I'm going to line it up because my EZ Body has this lateral line on it, so I'm going to get that right in the middle. Then we can go ahead and just wrap that on there. Throw in a couple whip finishes and we're good to go. And I'm going to go ahead and just go with a little bit of super glue on the sides. Oh! We'll go with a little bit of super glue on the sides here. So it'll be easier to put our eyes on. Just pretend like you didn't see that. I'm just going to get these eyes on here and kind of bend it to shape. Or you can see what we could do is take these eyes and kind of bend them, pre-bend them, and then we can go ahead and stick them on there. Okay, now we can go ahead and add some resin. We'll go ahead and take some of our medium. Now there's a little bit of an argument to maybe start with the thin here, but the medium resin will soak through the EZ Body. I don't want to add too much here, but enough to where we can get a nice coat. Should probably clean my bodkin off. This is after tying hundreds of surf candies for the past couple weeks. So we just want to go and get a nice even coat around the whole thing to start. Probably add a little bit more here. Now there also is an argument to use some flex resin. You can actually get a pretty nice flex EZ Body candy, if you will, by using some flex resin. But I personally like going with the harder version of this fly. Go make sure we fill in the gap right around the hook eye, right behind it, not getting resin in the hook eye, of course, because that'll be a pain when you're on the inlet or out on the boat trying to fish. The albies blow up and your hook eye has resin in it, so be very careful of that. Now we can go ahead and hit this with the light. Now it's always better to build up multiple coats of resin than just going with one giant one at the start, because sometimes the resin has a tendency to overheat or run on you because there's too much. You hit it with the light, it'll actually move away from the light. So it's always good to start with less. You can always build it up, and that way you don't have too much resin on there. And loosen this up. I gotta do a little vise maintenance soon. It's getting a little squeaky. I've been doing a lot of commercial tying recently. So we'll just hit that with the light real quick, kind of give that a basic cure, if you will. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit it with one more coat of medium. And I'm going right up to around where the bend of the hook is. I don't want to go all the way back to the end of the resin, but I'm going right before it. So again, with the medium, we're just trying to fill in the body profile of any gaps that we have so we get a nice even finish on this fly. You can see at the top here around the eye, we had a little bit of a gap. So I'm just going to add a little bit more to the top. Kind of work that around evenly. It's where it pays to have a rotary vise, right? We can kind of move this fly back and forth. Let this resin kind of evenly spread, and we can keep checking. Kind of let that evenly spread around. That's looking pretty good, so I'll go ahead and hit it with the light here. See, I like to start with an initial, kind of hit it for a second or two and then slowly turn it around or flip it sometimes quickly to the other side, depending on how much resin's on there, but we want to make sure we hit it with an initial cure so it doesn't run on us or anything like that. Or you accidentally bump it with the light and end up pulling a strain of UV resin away attached to the light. These are all things that I've done. It comes from experience, so you can learn from my mistakes. So now we're going to go with some thin resin. We have our Solarez thin here. It's got a much thinner viscosity to it. It's going to flow much easier and fill any of these nooks and crannies here, these gaps. Now this bottle's almost done, so I'm just going to let that sit like that for a second. Now we don't want to add too much of this. This stuff does have a tendency to run if you go with way too much because of the viscosity of it. So just enough to go with a complete 360 degree like final finish here. Fill any little gaps that we have, any nooks and crannies or any little hidden depressions. Gonna spread that around, and if we really want to make sure, like for instance the top here, we want that resin to flow down a little bit, we can make sure we kind of work it like this, where the top is on the bottom as we're spinning it, or keeping it working around that way, so we could have it flow. We could just go around and see it's looking pretty even, so I'm pretty happy with it. We're going to hit it with the light real quick. You can see I'm spinning it around so that thin resin doesn't run on us. A little bit of craft fur on there from the last video I just shot. It's Albie season, so I'm trying to get as many Albie tying tutorials out for you folks. I've been so busy with commercial shellfishing this summer and then fly tying now, so I'll just kind of rotate this around and work it with the light, and now we're looking pretty good. Now, one little side note, anytime I work with the UV resin, I always try and stick them out on a sunny day and let them sit for about 5-10 minutes out in direct sun, flip them over, and you'll never have any issue with tackiness or anything like that, because the best source of UV light is the sun. There's no substitute for that. But if you are having issues, the other thing is you can use some rubbing alcohol or something like that. I've personally never used any head cement over resin. I've just never been I've never really tried it. Never really saw the need. I know that's a popular thing, but I personally just stick them out in the sun, or maybe hit them with a little bit of rubbing alcohol if there's any little bit of tackiness left over and it's winter time and it's been snowing out for a week, you know, and I have to ship some flies out or something. So as long as you give them a good enough cure and keep moving it, you should be able to get a nice finish on there. So, but let me know, do you folks coat your UV flies with head cement? I think Bob Popovics does, but let me know down below in the comments. I've personally never done that, so I'm curious how many people use that. But there we go. We have our nice EZ Body surf candy here, or this EZ Body Albie fly. Very simple, a great fall time fly. You know, it does a lot of the work for you. It makes the getting a nice, clean, even body on the fly that much easier than if you're just tying with straight bucktail or craft fur or synthetic material like Supreme hair that we use for our surf candies. So it just makes it a little bit easier, and it adds a nice finish to it. You can see this. We'll see if we can get a close-up. You can see how that EZ Body with that pearl adds a nice sparkle to it. So, all right, let's throw it in the swim tank and see what it looks like.